Hello, my name is Jennifer Ferreira and welcome to another Grande Entrevista. The past few months have been nothing short of tumultuous for our guest today. High poll ratings at the beginning of the year showed a serious chance of winning the provincial election, but this quickly vanished following allegations of sexual misconduct. Still, he continues to stay active in the political arena, this time on the municipal level, running for mayor. Joining me today is Patrick Brown, the former leader of Ontario's Progressive Conservative Party. Thank you so much for speaking with us today, Patrick.
Well, Ola and Abrigardo for having me on your show today.
If you could describe the past several months with just one word, what would that word be?
Horrified. To go through false allegations is not something I'd wish on my worst enemy. When those false accusations came up there on the front pages of the paper, when they were on the front page of pretty much every paper and TV station, and when the stories fell apart, when it became apparent that they were lies, there was the middle of the paper, page A15. It's not something I'd ever wish on anyone, but in life, if you get knocked down, you get back up, and frankly, when you need to show your tenacity is in adversity, and I want to continue to help people, and I'm committed to do that.
So reflecting on everything that's happened these past few months, are you at this moment in time where you thought you would be months ago?
Well, I think if you asked anyone 6 months ago, with a 20-point lead in the polls, I was looking like I would be the Premier of Ontario. But life has challenges, and the route changes, and I think God has a reason for everything, and it's led me to the opportunity to serve in Brampton. This is a city that's hurting. This is a city that needs a new path, and I really believe this is what I'm meant to do, help those families in Brampton.
And we'll certainly get to that later on in this interview. But for now, I'd like to take a moment to address some of these sexual misconduct allegations that were made against you towards the earlier part of this year. 2 women came forward to CTV News alleging inappropriate behavior on your part. One of the incidents goes back as far as about 10 years ago. And so tell me about your response to these allegations.
Well, obviously the fictitious stories resulted in a defamation lawsuit. So I can't really talk much about it other than the fact it's an $8 million defamation lawsuit because of these false allegations. And the station that reported them handled it inappropriately. Justin Trudeau just recently faced an allegation from when he was 28. This was an allegation from when I was 28. Surprise, surprise, it comes out right before an election. And CTV didn't do their due diligence. They didn't do their due diligence to check if it was false. And that's why they're now this is why it's before the courts. It's why there's a defamation claim against CTV for $8 million.
So aside from the lawsuit, I'm wondering whether or not you're still feeling some of the effects of these allegations today in your day-to-day life.
Listen, the incredible response of the public, you can't underestimate the general public. They saw through these pretty quickly. They saw the politically motivated nature, and when I get out there, when I'm knocking on doors in Brampton, going to events, what I get is people say, boy, you got stabbed in the back, or boy, was that dirty politics against you. And it's that support from the general public that has really motivated me to continue going. It's the decency, it's the understanding, it's the support of the general public that has given me courage to, I say you get knocked down, it's not how hard you fall, it's how quickly you get back up. It's their support that has really given me the confidence to get back up.
So you're finding that there's more support as opposed to skepticism?
The support has been overwhelming, and it's touching, actually.
And so you mentioned this defamation lawsuit against CTV, and I realize that there isn't so much that you can talk about, but I guess in terms of developments of the lawsuit, what can we expect? Is there a timeline?
So lawsuits like this could take 3, 4, 5 years. So it is, the legal process, unfortunately, is slow, but I'm optimistic that we'll have justice and that the courts will hold CTV accountable for the defamation.
I think it's important to acknowledge the climate in which these allegations are arising, specifically the #MeToo movement. Many people in a position that is not so different from yours have gone into hiding, or they sort of refuse to address the allegations brought forward to them. But you have been rather public, specifically when it comes to your fight against these allegations. Why?
Well, I'm a big supporter of the Me Too movement, but false allegations undermine the spirit of the movement. And I think it's important that, frankly, it diminishes the courage of those who have been victims when you allow false allegations to hold. And that's why CTV has to be accountable for the actions.
Following these allegations and your subsequent resignation as leader of the Ontario Progressive Conservative Party, a new leader has emerged as face of the party, that being Doug Ford. And since winning the leadership race back in March, he has since become Premier of the province. And so I'd like to know your thoughts about how you think he's been doing so far.
Well, obviously, I think he was pretty fortunate to inherit what I had built over 3 years. You know, he inherited party coffers that were in better shape than ever before. When I won the leadership, the party was $7 million in debt, and he inherited a party with a great bank account, more significant resources than the NDP and the Liberals combined. When I ran for the leadership of the party, they had 10,000 members. When I left, it was close to 200,000. The party had been winning by-elections left, right, and center, and had a 20-point lead in the polls, the largest lead in modern memory. And so, you know, I think we built something very formidable. Now I hope that the new government will honor some of the commitments we made during my time. When I was leader of the PC party, I promised the largest commitment in mental health funding in provincial history. This is a dirty little secret in the healthcare system, and I hope it's addressed. You know, we promised we were going to help with dental care for low-income seniors. We promised a major investment in infrastructure. We promised to stop hallway medicine. You look in Brampton, it's horrific. And I hope these challenges will be addressed.
Do you believe that so far Doug Ford is taking the Progressive Conservative Party into a direction that is similar to where you were hoping to take it?
I think we're different conservatives. I'm more of a Bill Davis conservative, so I don't think anyone would characterize our policies as similar, but it's early days, and it's not for me to judge. I'm out of provincial politics. That's for the general public.
Ahead of the provincial election, while you were still leading the Progressive Conservative Party, you had a real shot at winning, and I don't think anyone could have doubted that. Is any part of you today bitter, perhaps, at the fact that you are not Premier, that you are not where Doug Ford is right now?
No, you can't look backwards, you can only look forwards, and adversity makes you stronger. Like I said, I wouldn't wish false allegations on anyone. A defamation like that is horrifying for one's family, but you can't get stuck in the past. You can only look forward. God has a reason for everything, and I want to help families in Brampton. This is a city that's challenged, that needs help, that needs a different approach, and that's what I'm focused on.
What are you hoping to see on a provincial level from the Progressive Conservatives?
So I want to see them deliver for Brampton. I want them to honor the commitments they made in the provincial election, but I also want to see them deliver for Brampton. Right now we have the most dilapidated infrastructure. We've got the worst underfunding and overcrowding when it comes to healthcare in the province. We're getting a satellite campus instead of a full university. We continue to get consolation prize after consolation prize, and enough. I want a fair deal, and I don't care if it's the Liberals in Ottawa or Conservatives at Queen's Park. I want them to deliver for the city of Brampton. And why is it that Markham's getting a full university and they're a third our size? Why is Scarborough getting a state-of-the-art subway and we can't get even peanuts for our infrastructure in Brampton? I want to start demanding that other levels of government pitch into Brampton. And frankly, they need Brampton more than Brampton needs them. They need Brampton more than Brampton needs them. If you want to be Premier or Prime Minister of Canada, you have to win seats in Brampton. And so rather than just come here at election time, as Mayor of the city, I want to say to both parties, to all three parties, deliver for Brampton. It's long overdue.
So you're here to give Brampton a voice, one that you think has been missing.
Yeah, and you know, Hazel McCallum would never have allowed her city to be looked over. And for too long, we've done that at Brampton, and it's not on anymore.
I'd like to turn now to what you've been doing since resigning as leader of Ontario's Progressive Conservative Party. You entered the race for chair of Peel Region, But with the government's recent passing of Bill 5, the elections in regions including Peel, Muskoka, Niagara, and York have since been cancelled. But you didn't stop there. You then announced that you would be running for mayor in the city of Brampton. My question now is, why Brampton?
So I was running for chair of Peel Region, which encompasses Mississauga, Brampton, and Caledon. And I think all of us were shocked when the regional elections were cancelled. Both the PCs and the Liberals have been on record supporting these elections. Democracy is always better than a backroom appointment. I think the people should get a choice on who the regional chair is. Having said that, the provincial government's entitled to make this legislative change. They canceled the elections, and it's now going to be a backroom appointment. And those candidates running for the regional chair were given the choice. They could run in a municipality rather than the region.
Right.
And my campaign for a fair deal for Peel was really reflective of Brampton. My campaign was about the healthcare underfunding, the lack of infrastructure, the lack of good paying jobs, and nowhere is that more evident than Brampton. You know, my family's been in Brampton for 40 years. My mom's side of the family's from Barrie. My dad's from Brampton, where he's been practicing law for 40 years. And before I was an MP, I practiced law in Brampton.
Okay.
I'm living in downtown Brampton, and thought if I want to continue to help people, if I want to contribute to really tackle the issues that I've been raising, the best area to put my name in was in Brampton.
Brampton. So in the past, you have represented places like Barrie as well as Simcoe North. So I think it strikes as a little odd for some people who are seeing your face attached to Brampton, because that's not the first connection they necessarily think of. But you're here to say that you do have Brampton roots.
Yeah, so when I ran for the leadership of the PC party, my campaign headquarters was out of Brampton because that's where we had the most volunteers. I actually never grew up in Barrie. It happened to be an opportunity to serve federally, and my mother has some family history there. But you know, Brampton was a challenge that I wanted to tackle. I see the city with a lack of jobs, gridlock, not having a voice, that I wanted to step up for this challenge. You know, I know the mayor said, you know, she's lived in Brampton for 35 years and that you have to have lived here a long time to run for the highest office. I disagree with that. Yeah, I could have easily said my family's been here 40 years and, you know, made it a competition of who's been here longer. But I don't think that's Canadian.
So it's not about that.
It should be about ideas. And frankly, there shouldn't be a litmus test to who's been the oldest member of the country club. We're a diverse, beautiful city. You know, we just had an MPP elected, my good friend Amarjot Sandhu in Brampton West. He was an international student 10 years ago, and now he's in the provincial legislature. I think of Gurbakh Smalley, who was the first Sikh MP in Canadian history. And if you had told people you have to be born in Brampton and been part of some country club here, you're saying to new Canadians that you don't have the right to run in politics. And that's hogwash. I don't buy that approach. I think what counts is not who's been here the longest. It's not been who's part of the, you know, the old boys club. It's what are your ideas to get Brampton back on track? What can you contribute to improve the quality of life in Brampton? And there shouldn't be litmus tests like the mayor was suggesting. I think that is an unfortunate viewpoint.
Your decision to run has not come without its fair share of skepticism. You spoke about Mayor Linda Jeffrey, the current mayor of Brampton, and recently she did come out to say that Brampton is not a consolation prize, specifically in reference to your candidacy. Is that how you view the situation?
So I believe the mayor right now is worried, obviously. When I announced my candidacy, she put out 10 tweets attacking me. And I'd say this. A mayor that only resorts to attacking their opponents is one that can't run on their own record. Linda Jeffrey hasn't spent any time in the last week talking about her record of Brampton. She doesn't want to talk about her record on public safety because crime's gone up. She doesn't want to talk about her record on taxation because property taxes are now higher in Brampton than they are in Toronto. She doesn't want to talk about her record on transit because infrastructure is deteriorating and traffic is getting worse. She doesn't want to talk about her record on jobs because the majority of Brampton now works outside of Brampton. So when a mayor doesn't have a record, it's easy to resort to personal attacks. That may that might be what they do in Washington, D.C., but that's not what we do in Canada. That's not what we do in Brampton. And I have said I'm not going to respond in kind to personal attacks. I'm going to focus on my positive view for getting Brampton back on track.
What would you say to people who might not take you seriously as a politician?
Well, listen, what are you going to say to people that do take you seriously? I think that's a bit of a jaded question. What I would say is that the support has been very encouraging. The fact that a majority of the current mayor's own council supports me speaks to the fact that they want a different approach, and the kindness, the decency, the warmth that I've been feeling at every event I go to in Brampton only vindicates my viewpoint that this was the right decision and this was a place that I can really contribute.
Many are calling this a political comeback. Is that fair to say?
And I don't like the word political comeback, but my philosophy is in life you get knocked down, you get back up. And if you allow adversity to cause you to go disappear, then you don't have the tenacity that political leadership requires.
Looking specifically at Brampton and Brampton's situation, what would you say is the largest issue currently facing residents here in Brampton?
The big issues are jobs, the complete lack of jobs, the horrific record on economic development. So that's one. We need to get good paying jobs to Brampton. Number two is public safety. The crime is escalating out of control. And we have a mayor who's now in a very public fight with the chief of police, doesn't get along with our police association, is dysfunctional. And three, traffic. We got to get this traffic under control. The gridlock is horrific in Brampton. You get on the 410 in the morning and it's a parking lot. You go on the GO train, you're like a sardine.
Speaking in regards to this idea of property tax as well as job development, I believe the statistic the city has come out with is about 60% of residents in Brampton who work currently have to leave the city in order to get to work every day. And so what is your plan in terms of keeping talent local? And
it could be even worse. It could, some figures suggest it could be as high as 70%. Okay. We're increasingly becoming a bedroom community. One of my great mentors in politics and a person that I think the world of is Bill Davis. When Bill Davis was Premier of Ontario, Brampton Bill as they called him, Brampton had local jobs. People weren't leaving this city. What's happened over the last few decades is we've been lethargic on economic development. You have to be hungry. You have to pitch investment. Hazel McCallion, when she was mayor of Mississauga, she would cold call businesses and say, come and look at Mississauga, come and tour our employment lands, look at the opportunity in Mississauga. And we were asleep at the switch. You got to be aggressive, you got to be hungry and go after businesses that are growing and say, let's showcase our city. Hazel used to brag about the proximity to the airport. Well, we're close to the airport too. We've got a young, well-educated workforce, but we're not out there beating the drums of Brampton. And frankly, just a few weeks ago, Amazon went to Caledon. Caledon beat Brampton on a major economic development opportunity. Even though Amazon was looking at Brampton, we got out-hustled by the mayor of Caledon. And good for him, but we need some of that assertiveness. The fact that those property taxes aren't going to be in Brampton speaks to the failure of leadership of the current team at the city of Brampton, the mayor's failure to not deliver on those jobs.
You're referring a lot to Hazel McCallion. Is she an inspiration for you?
Absolutely. I think Hazel McCallion is one of the great public servants of our century. And she was one of the people that I spoke to the night before I filed my papers. And she said, go for it.
Another huge issue facing residents here in Brampton is that of rising auto insurance rates. So I'm wondering what you have in store to lower those rates.
So any politician who says they're going to lower auto insurance rates from the municipal perspective is misleading. And I'm going to tell people the straight goods. Whether you like it or you don't, I'm going to tell you the truth. Auto insurance rates aren't controlled by Brampton City Hall, they're controlled provincially. I did propose a solution when I was in provincial politics that would end geographic discrimination when it comes to auto insurance. That became included in the PC platform, and I hope that the government will honor that policy resolution. I put it forward as a thoughtful solution to insurance rates that are out of control in Brampton. And as mayor, I will use my clout to encourage the provincial government to honor that promise.
One of the other issues that you touched upon earlier was this idea of a rising crime rate. And so I'm wondering, if elected as mayor, what investments will you make to make city streets safer?
So there's no simplistic solution, but right now obviously it's very dysfunctional. Call volumes are like this, and we have a situation where there's a very negative relationship between the mayor, the chief of police, and the police association. Everyone's got to be rowing in the same direction. There's a few things I would look at. One, obviously the police need more resources to respond to the growing crime volume, but it's not just more police officers. It's how you use those dollars. Last year, 42% of the calls to the Peel Police were mental health related. But we don't have enough mental health workers to respond to that need. There's a program called the COAST program where you have a mental health worker respond with a police officer to a call that is clearly mental health related. And that way you don't have the hospital clogged up with police cars. Sometimes you go to Peel Memorial, there's 19 or 20 police cars. Yeah. It's about using taxpayer resources in the right way. I love to expand the COAST program. It's a thoughtful way to respond to the growing mental health element of policing. I also want to give young people positive diversions. You look at the root causes of crime, there's poverty, and we've got the social housing backlog that is pretty significant in Peel region. That needs to be addressed. But on recreation, I want to invest in recreation. I want to give young people places to go develop positive values, the beauty of team sports. I want to invest in recreation in the city of Brampton.
Why should Brampton residents vote for you?
Because the same old approach isn't working. If you look at Brampton City Hall today and say you're happy, don't vote for me. Keep on the same path. If you're happy with rising crime, property taxes that are skyrocketing, a lack of good paying jobs, if you're happy with the current approach, then keep on going with the same team. If you want to try a different approach, if you want to have a mayor who's energetic towards economic development, committed to attack gridlocked, focused on making sure that we can have expanded recreation in Brampton, that a mayor who's going to work with the chief of police and the police association to keep Brampton safe. If you want that approach, then I'm your candidate.
Diverting a bit from this topic, I'd like to touch upon your perhaps more Portuguese roots. We are a Portuguese television news station, and I'd like to hear from you. Have you been to Portugal? What has your experience with the culture been like?
So I've been to Portugal twice, and I fell in love with the country. About 15 years ago, I took my youngest sister, Fiona, to Lisbon, and we just fell in love with the spirit of the city. And then last year, I went with a group of friends and explored the Algarve. A good friend of mine is Jack Oliveira from Liuna, and Jack was telling me about how beautiful the Algarve was. And so I went with some friends, and we toured Portimao, Albufeira, Lagos, and boy, when you're in the Algarve and you have to leave, the first thing you say to yourself is, when can I come back?
Right.
It was just a phenomenal example of beauty. But it's not simply visiting Portugal. Manuel Alexander, Joe Pimentel, people who are active in the Portuguese community in Brampton are good friends. I go to their events regularly. Mm-hmm. I just get a sense with the community. Family is important. Rolling up your sleeves, having a good work ethic is important. A sense of faith is important, and those are beautiful attributes that I think make Brampton stronger. And I'm grateful that we have a strong and growing Portuguese community in the city of Brampton and in Ontario.
Is that community one that you're looking forward to representing?
Absolutely. I love attending community events. I love getting to know people's dreams and aspirations from the community. So, yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today, Patrick Brown. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Obrigado.
And just as a final reminder, the municipal elections are scheduled for October 22nd of this year, so please be sure to go out and vote. My name is Jennifer Ferreira, and this has been yet another Gran Entrevista. Have a good night.